Good morning. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. So I've got a couple of gels here. This one is La Cura Gentle Face Wash Gel. This was £1.25 from Aldi. And I've also got Wilko brand Soothing After Sun Gel with aloe vera. And this one was £2.50 from Wilko. So I'll definitely be comparing these two. Now I've also got some general household items, some multi-purpose cloths here. These were, were these £1 or £1.20, something like that, for 10 cloths. Some birch seedling labels here, also from Wilko. Some Tart tins. Now those came from Claes Olsen. These were a few pence, I think. What were these? These were about £3 something. And also from Wilko, I've got a universal water filter cartridge. So we'll be taking a look at all these products. Now, if you're thinking Julian's gone completely mad, well, not really, because I'm going to use all these bits to make a supercapacitor. I'm going to use one of these two gels as a deep eutectic solvent, in other words, the electrolyte. These Tart tins, I think they're made of steel, are going to be the plates of the supercapacitor. They kind of interlock, and if I press them together, they'll get quite close. Piece of cloth as a separator membrane to physically hold the two plates apart, but allowing the solvent, the electrolyte, to make a sort of ionic connection from one side to the other. These I'm just going to use for stirring the gels. And then the universal water filter cartridge contains activated carbon. And that's what I'm going to use to massively increase the surface area of those plates. So is this all going to work? Well, I hope so. I've been watching quite a lot of other people's videos on making supercapacitors. I'll just go through a few of those now. So first up, Robert Murray Smith. This is a British guy, inventor extraordinaire. You've got to watch this guy if you want to know about supercapacitors, and he's doing a lot of work with graphene and what graphene can do. Then there's a Laser Saber. Laser Saber has been watching Robert Murray Smith, inspired by the things he's doing, and Laser Saber has been making supercapacitors using graphene. And also there's A. And A, real name Paul, I think, has been doing quite a lot of work on graphene recently, but a little while ago he made a supercapacitor using these types of cosmetic gel as the electrolyte. So it's A that gave me the idea to use these gels. And I also watched Big Clive's video on what's inside a water filter, because it's not just activated carbon inside these things, there's also something else. So I've already opened up one of these water cartridge filters. I bought a slightly different type, and inside you've got activated charcoal, but also something else, little spherical balls of something called an ion exchange resin. And I thought, well, that's a nuisance, because I really only want the activated charcoal. So I put them on my desk. So we've got basically two things here. We've got the activated charcoal, which are these sort of jaggedy bits, and the ion exchange resin balls, or spheres, which are these semi-translucent. Now these were brilliant white when I first opened this thing, but they've since gone grey, and that's probably because I've kind of mixed the carbon or the charcoal with the spherical ion exchange resin balls, and they've discoloured. So how to separate these two out? So I bought this Wilko functional cheap 80p plastic strainer, but I'm not sure I'm going to need it, because if I just tip my mat up a little bit, plastic strainer just fell on the floor, the ion exchange resin balls just roll away. So it's a case of just agitating it a bit, keeping the carbon and letting the ion exchange resin balls just roll down onto the floor. So I'm thinking the plates of the supercapacitor will be these Tart tins. They're not really an ideal shape, but I did think that the way they've fluted this metal to absorb the metal would mean that the cloth would also get similarly absorbed. If I press that down like that and then cut round here with a pair of scissors to remove most of the excess of this cloth, which I don't really need. So let's do that now. Cut all the way around there, just so there's a little tiny bit of overhang, and that's my capacitor plates with the separator membrane in between them. And then I thought I'd use these three clamps to hold the two Tart tins together. Now the idea isn't necessarily to push these Tart tins as close to each other as they can go, because this distance, this separation, is absolutely colossal in capacitor terms. No, the capacitor is, or an EDLC, an electrolytic double layer capacitor, is actually two capacitors in series, and each capacitor has two layers. That's why it's called a double layer capacitor. Oh, okay, Wikipedia says it's an electric double layer capacitor, but that takes you through to supercapacitors, and this article on Wikipedia on supercapacitors is actually pretty good. I've read the whole thing. So here under basic design we have an explanation of how it works, plus this little diagram. I'm going to get in a bit closer on that. So here it is. Number 2 is the collector, and there's one either side. 3 is the polarized electrode. Now I think in my case that's going to be the activated charcoal. 4 is the Helmholtz double layer. This is where the ions collect. And then you can see that there's this sort of large area of electrolyte with the membrane sitting down the middle, what they call the separator. And in this large area of electrolyte you have positive and negative ions. Now I don't really understand chemistry, so I'm just following this blindly. But here's the electrical diagram. It's a capacitor, this sort of electrolyte layer, and then another capacitor. So is this going to work? Well, I have had one attempt at this already, but it all went a bit wrong because I think I over-voltaged the capacitor. I put 2.4 volts on it, and the electrolyte in the cloth all started bubbling furiously, turned a nasty brown colour, which I think actually was something to do with the these steel trays, and it all started oozing up out of here and dripping down onto my mat. So not entirely successful, but I think next time I do this, I'm going to keep the voltage much lower because I'm not sure that these gels support a high voltage in the electrolyte. Now, if the Tart tins don't work, I do have an option on these Wilco pie-in-the-sky pie plates. These are aluminium, of course. It's a bit of a shame that they're not completely flat, but I do have some thoughts about how to hold the two pieces of aluminium in close proximity to each other, so that is another option. So yeah, that's what all this stuff is for. I'm going to make my own supercapacitor using stuff I bought in local shops. Now the question is it going to work? Is it going to be any good? Well, possibly not as good as the genuine article like this one here, but I'm determined to give it a go. So in an upcoming video, that's what I'm going to do. Cheerio. Hi. No, that's bad. Hi. Hi. Can't do it. Hi.